Our first session this morning will be led by Anthony Bly with SDSU Extension. Anthony Bly is a soils field specialist and has been working with this Every Acre Counts program since the beginning. And so he's going to help introduce us to the program itself and give us some idea of how it works and the progress you're making. So,
good morning. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Good morning. All right. There's a little bit of talk in the room that the demeanor's kind of lackluster. Nathan. Yeah, there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I want to say that I'm most concerned about y'all, right? And the only advice I have is just throw the anxiety out the door. Whatever it is, wherever you're at, and I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that, but some days I feel like that working with farmers because every decision they make is big, right? And it's a pressure. So and I'm sure you all kind of have that too, right? It's more psychological than it is anything else sometimes. And so, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, where it's going to go, but you know what? Everything always comes out in the end. So anyway, I'll get to Every Acre Counts today. It's about making every acre count on your farm. I've had numerous subtitles to this talk that I've given for the last, fall of 18 is when we launched this. It's been really fun. Both Dr. Dearson and I were selected for the project. It's not our idea, or we're not the geniuses that came up with it. But I'm sure you've heard me talk who that is, and we'll probably just leave it at that. But these are the groups that we've worked with. The top three there from the beginning. USDA and RCS, a big player there. Jeff Simprich really supported the program very extensively, and then Second Century Habitat Fund. SDSU is just a landing place, and I wondered why for a long time, and because I had a lot of other things going on when this was given to me and Matt, but I was at a very contentious meeting in Madison in December, and I had to make the point that SDSU works with all the stakeholders in South Dakota, no matter what their opinion is, okay? And so that's kind of why this is a good place for this to be at SDSU. But Pheasants Forever, a great partner, huge partner. They wrote our checks. SDSU doesn't like to write checks to growers for practices, and there's lots of good reasons for that. Ducks Unlimited, a partner. Soil Health Coalition. Purina was brought along with pheasants there on a grant. AgTegra and corn are, those heavy commodity driven companies and entity there, and they fully support what we're doing. Of course, game fish and parks, I was told not even to put that on there, but how could I not? It's a big deal. The division between conservation, wildlife, and agronomy and crop production, that chasm is pretty wide. And, I really didn't realize that until I started working in more conservation. I've always been from a conservation farm. My dad saved our farm in the 80s with conservation and practices and such, and we still do that on our farm heavily. And so I never realized that. So I'm an agronomist. I can change if I have to, and I know why. So anyway, the three newest ones in the middle of the slide, Sustainable Food Lab is a nationwide project looking at helping farmers produce food more sustainably. The Sustainable Farming Association for Minnesota has got a project in Minnesota that I'm working on with them. We kicked that off last week, and General Mills is funding that. So those are the three in the middle that lately have come around. We do have a pending RCPP grant. I guess it's not a grant, funding opportunity, but you know where that's at, just like everything else. So there we are. I just wanted to show you Matt. He's on campus there, very smart fellow, Griffin endowed professor, very wise guy. So I use him a lot on campus. So we have, these well-written project goals and outcomes. You can read them there. I'm not going to read them word for word, but basically it's this. We use precision profitability analysis to identify marginal field areas, and it's the hook. It's the hook to the crop producer, the large producers that are using precision ag on lots of acres. The hook is, what are you doing with that data? Okay? What are you really doing with that data? A lot of them aren't doing anything. Okay? They've got the data, it's there. One producer who I tried to get on the project for a long time. And I'm very low pressure sale, but I'm persistent. And I know when I can call producers and when I shouldn't. And I'm still learning too, but finally he told me, he says, I gotta tell you, I don't know where my data's at. We've switched combines, we've switched colors, we've switched this, and I said, hey, that's okay, because at that time we had Kristen Weber working on Every Acre Counts, and she's a guru at all of that, and I've learned a lot from her, obviously, and we could help him, but I still couldn't get him to come in. So the outcomes we would expect is that removing these marginal lands from crop production increases their profitability, and I have lots of examples to show, and they're all real examples that we've been encouraged by the producers to show. Of course, our marginal lands. This talk is for farmers. It's for everybody, but it seems like we should just revisit them. And this project really came about because of the salty soils that are developing in the middle part of our state. And we all know the reasons why those have occurred. We know that we can fix, I hate that word, fix, but basically that's what it is. We can really remediate these salty soils just using vegetation because it is a water problem. It is a water table problem. And this is a really good example of showing that. And then another one that I don't think a lot of folks think about is our eroded hillsides. That's where I'm from, basically. That eastern part of the state, we've got some topography and we've got some hillsides that are showing some light colors. And you can see that in the background here. Light's kind of prohibiting that, but way back in there by those trees there's some light colored knolls and areas in there. But basically I'm focusing on this waterway. It's gone. I would bet in the 70s and 80s there was a grassed waterway there one time. It's gone. And there's some darker and light material in that waterway, and that light material is being eroded from the surrounding hillside, and it's being deposited in that waterway. And, I talk about this, especially with farmers, that you've got technology now in your sprayers to shut off individual nozzles. We can precision seed in your fields, and you should be able to continually allow and spray by and over these areas and bring them back. Glyphosate took these waterways out, as I remember it well. Spraying was, we had boom shutoffs and they were electronic, and you wanted to get that last 2 foot of the crop, and then you killed the grass next to it when you were spraying. You shut the boom off, and over the years they just disappeared. Just spray the whole thing out, and they started farming it. So I think I know we can do better today. So these, just returning conservation practices, it could be a big deal that could be permitted with precision ag. These are eroded hillsides. Here's another waterway here where it should be there. This farmer's still doing too much tillage, but that's another talk. But still, this happens every year. I have a farmer that tell me this a lot. He says, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. And I thought, well, that's good. And being naive and stupid as I am, I didn't know that was a quote of a very famous person. Does anybody know whose quote that is? That's Einstein's quote. Yeah. So anyway, there it is right there, over and over and over. Of course, our marginal wetlands. I talked to a lot of producers that like tile drainage. There's that stakeholder group, right? SDSU has to work with all the stakeholders in South Dakota, just not the ones we like better than the other ones. And so, I tell the stories of I've been on fields that have tile drain installed and the tile drain doesn't work because it's installed correctly, or they didn't clearly define their objectives, and they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and these things don't work. Okay, so these are marginal lands that should stay as they are. They should stay as these marginal wetlands. And so there's another example as well. But we just, try to keep farming, and nobody keeps track that only 2 out of 10 years they get a decent crop there, or 3, or maybe 4, right? We're so short-sighted in our memory. We only basically can barely remember last year, and we can't remember 5 years ago. That's another way that this precision ag data is very empowering, right? It can remember. You can see it. Okay, so what are the steps in Every Acre Counts? It's pretty simple. Talk to me or Matt. Matt will tell you to talk to me. That's fine. That's what he should do. And we just have a data use agreement we sign. It's pretty easy. It's mainly for me to say to other people that ask me for data, I can't share it with you because SDSU signed this agreement, right? It's mainly for me. But it is for the producer to know that we don't share. Then we just start collecting data and information. It's a pretty easy process. Maybe I'm too easygoing, but we try to work during the time periods in the year where not a lot of farming is going on, so this is one of them. And we do those things. We get the production costs and things like that. And then we do our analysis, and then we deliver the results. That's the first part of Every Acre Counts. Beyond that, it's always the producers in control. At any point, if they want to stop for whatever reason they want to, use is fine. It's a working lands process. Then it's decision time. Whatever they want to do with their marginal lands or how they want to address them is up to them. And every farm is different. The dynamics of landlords and tenants and cash rent and agreements and relationships, we can't touch those because we don't want to split up a business relationship, right? So some producers can talk to their landlords about things and some can't. Okay, you got to realize that because they're on the edge of losing it. And the question about getting pesticide records yesterday was kind of like that. First thing went through my mind, because I've heard it over and over and over, they took that land away from me. Why should I tell them what I did? It's real. That's a real thing. So anyway, whatever they want to do, we don't care. Our second version of Every Acre Counts through that RCPP had some generous program payments that we were going to provide, and seed and seeding, and even a cover crop on some of those field acres on the farm. And I was really looking forward to that, but Who knows? Who knows? So anyway, we can connect, I think we can connect to any data platform there is. These are the big four right here. And we go through field analytics. Here's the production cost that we put in. Some farmers just give me a gross production cost. They don't include land because their land rent is a sacred piece of information. And they don't want anybody to know what it is. And I get that. Some give me everything, the whole spreadsheet. I can look right in, and it's an amazing thing. And I can't talk about it. That's the big deal. So we take multiple years of harvest data, and we normalize them into one map, and you can see the three maps there are different from each other, but they come together and make one map. We put the farmer's yield for that field back on that normalized map and do a profitability distribution, a return on investment, the yield increase needed to break even, and the expenses needed to be reduced to break even. So it gives them an idea, can I ever increase yields on these areas to that level? Or can I cut out enough expenses to that level to be profitable? Kind of creates that thought, right? We want to get them where they're at, is a simpler way to put it. Here's some examples. Of course, the map on the left is the normalized map with their corn yield on there. And then what we do is we just take out those marginal areas on our own. We're not suggesting that's what the producer has to do, but it's just an educational moment to show them the effect of taking those acres out. So let's just look at the summary. In this field, we took out 8.5 acres. The yield on the remaining acres just automatically jumped by 11 bushels because we took out those bad performing acres. Profit increased and the break-even price went down, okay, on those remaining bushels, which is good. Here's another example of a real field, half section. Farmer decided to take out that funny looking angle piece and along the bottom and then that strip. And, we asked him, well, why'd you do that? He gave a lot of reasons why he wanted to do that. And this farm has a lot of livestock, and those reasons were part of it, okay? And so he took out 136 acres on that half section. The yield on the remaining acres went up by 16. The opportunity ratio was decreased by 13%. He still left a little on the table, but sometimes you can't get them all. And the financials were just improved even better there. This is kind of our shining star, and that red box got moved. Okay, well, it's supposed to be the whole field there, but anyway, a 200-acre field here. And you can see the return on investment map in the bottom left-hand corner. You can see the bottom corner and along that wet area over there are red, and the rest of the field is green. So the producer took out everything but what's up in the corner there. That's yellow. That red box must have got shifted on me when we transformed slides last week, but anyway, he took out a whole bunch of acres in that field. And here's the summary. Took out 100 acres. The yield on the remaining acres increased by 30 bushels. The ROI increased by 21%. Profit increased, and the profit per acre increased to $123. Now, there are other financial considerations when we do this, is still have to pay the rent on those acres you took out. And so we're looking for a program to kind of help them for a while. But I think it's like anything else. Once you get used to something, it becomes a norm, and then it's okay. It works. And I'll have a little example from my farm here in a little bit. So, those programs, what those programs are. There they are. We try to point out to producers there's a lot of things available. And in Minnesota, they have 24 things I heard last week, programs, 24 options. Farmers are confused, right? They're confused. They need help. They need help figuring that out. No one can make the final decision. I got this picture in here. Here's a salty area that's been seeded, and you can see the rows in there. And it's just one of those things that you all know about. You know how long it takes for vegetation to get established in there. And it's mainly kochia weed, you know, for the first few years. So this is a very poor picture of my farm. It's an FSA map. It's terrible. We farm the 2 quarters diagonally. And if you focus, you're going to see some blue areas in pen that I took out. There's one here, there's one here, and there's one up there. Kristen did my Every Acre Counts on our farm. And so I chose to take this 3 acres out, that 2 acre out, and that barely 1 acre out for different reasons. This is a pain in the butt coming around the shelter belt trying to turn around in there with a 90-foot sprayer, and just why would I keep doing that? So let's put it into something. This is very marginal land along a fence here, and my neighbor's water dumps over and creates rills there all the time. Well, I keep doing the same thing over and over, right? So I put that in. And then this is the steepest land on our farm. There's some, it's 15% slope there. So we put that in a pollinator plot. And, you know, like I mentioned, my dad used conservation to save this farm, and he did. 2 brothers tried to farm it, and they couldn't make it. So he had a job off the farm and worked like heck to make it work. And so we put that into pollinator plots, and this is what we got. You know what we got. We got some wildlife. We got deer and pheasants, and you know, the first few years it doesn't look the greatest, but there's flowers out there. And so we're into the 3rd year of this thing, and it just gets better, better and better and better. And you know, the payoff is this. I gotta swallow hard. I'm not a hunter because I'm a farmer. My son likes to hunt. What do, right? See, you feed it. You feed it with everything you got. Look at it's priceless, and I'm sorry. I'm an emotional guy, so I try to hide it, but it's there, and that's the payoff, and I don't know what else to do. But anyway, so we've done over 57,000 acres, just over 1,000 in the last year, kind of waiting for our CPP to come around. 54 farms, but I signed up a bunch in Minnesota, so I got a lot of work to do. 2650 in some sort of conservation program, 100 acres, just farmers did it on their own, okay? Kristen went to work for a crop insurance company doing this process. That's the big win. And we're just trying to keep it going. So that pilot project is with the Wilkin Soil and Water Conservation District in Minnesota. So summary, I really believe the program brings consensus between agricultural crop production and conservation. It's a hook to get those crop farmers in and for them to see the big wins that can happen. Of course, environmentally, we know that it can be big. It's huge. I've taken some soil samples in some areas that we've been converting, and then there's some positive results. Of course, you know the wildlife story. The crop risk coverage on insurance should help save taxpayers money. Maybe I need to write a letter to Elon Musk. No, I'm just kidding. But it should help save taxpayer money down the road. It's not an instantaneous savings, but down the road it should increase. And basically, stakeholders, I think, like what they see. We have an older fellow in a small town in South Dakota that rents out his land to someone that's participated and converted some of these areas, and they're green now. And that farmer drives around just like they do, right? Let's go take a look at the farm. And he told the producer, you know what? It just looks better. Instead of white and blowing in the wind, you're trying to get something to grow out there, and it just looks better. So that's the message. That's important as well. And with that, I think my time is up. And if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. But I'm not being stuck up. I do have to leave for 2 other meetings today, so I'm going to be leaving very soon after I walk off the podium. So thank you for your time.